The United States recently conducted an offensive cyber operation against Venezuela when they captured Maduro. It's really interesting that the US Central Command would admit to a public thing like that, but of course, at the end of the day, we just want to flex on the rest of the world and make people like Russia understand that they're not the only people with the capability of turning the power off. So let's talk a little bit about the different powers across the world that have the capabilities of turning the energy off. A company called Dragos has done a really good job at tracking different threat groups across the world, ones that want to target ICS specifically, which includes healthcare, oil, natural gas, manufacturing, and energy, which is the big one that I want to discuss today. I'm not going to go over all 20 of Dragos's tracked threat actor groups. I am only going to talk about a couple big ones, namely ones from China, Russia, and Iran. These guys, they're pretty fucking good. What they like to do is get inside networks and not let anybody find out. They have been in networks for over 5 years with nobody noticing. And they do that with a technique called living off the land. That means they don't bring in any malware, they don't set off a bunch of antivirus alarms or anything like that. They just use all of the tools that are built into Microsoft and their other components within a corporate network and just exploit the shit out of them. I think lately a lot of antivirus vendors and EDR companies have been doing more detections for living off the land, but it's still something that requires a lot of custom rules being created as well as threat hunts to make sure that the usage of the tools in your environment is actually good. Threat hunting is so important for Volt Typhoon within critical infrastructure because they're so fucking sneaky. Seriously, they'll do the same stuff that normal employees will do, but unless you're really paying attention to what's normal within your own environment, you're going to have a really hard time telling what is Volt Typhoon and what is just your regular IT person. Volt Typhoon also has a little bit of an upper hand in this situation, and that's because China manufactures everything. We know that they put in backdoors in a ton of shit, and so that's why the United States government has issued like a list of over 100 different products or companies that US critical infrastructure should not be having in their network, either due to known backdoors or just concerns that China might have done something to the actual hardware that's built into these things. The last thing to really be noted about Volt Typhoon is they love exploiting edge devices. What that means, it's like firewalls, routers, anything that's on the perimeter of your network that allows for access in. So if you have vulnerabilities on that shit, you better patch it. Another threat group that is known to be targeting energy infrastructure is a little group called the Cyber Avengers. And these guys are from Iran. These guys, they're a little less stealthy than Volt Typhoon. They like to let you know when they've compromised your equipment. One time, the Cyber Avengers found a bunch of Unitronics PLCs available on the internet. And that should never happen. You should never have your PLCs open to the internet. That's honestly, it's just dumb, okay? And so basically what that allowed these Cyber Avengers to do is log in with a default password to these PLCs. And when they did that, they were able to download configuration files for future attacks. They also decided to publicize on one of the banners that the Cyber Avengers was here. Whoa. Essentially, they're kind of like hacktivists. They basically are saying, if you're with Israel, we're gonna hack your shit. Which, whatever. And for that one, it's really easy to make yourself not a target. First off, don't use the fucking default credentials, okay? Second off, look at my kitty. Okay, second off, let's not have our stuff on the internet. The only thing that should be network facing are things that are supposed to be network facing. And then, of course, just use MFA for all of your environments, even if your PLCs are within your segmented OT environment. It's easy to compromise the IT system and then lateral movement all the way into your ICS systems. So use unique accounts, different passwords, different MFA, all that shit. Okay, so my third and favorite threat group to talk about is the Sandworm team. And these guys are from Russia. And honestly, I feel a little bit bad saying that they're my favorite because they're like kind of evil. And they've done a lot of bad things to the Ukrainians, so I do feel bad about that. But as far as like a research perspective, they're very cool to learn about. Sandworm, aka Electrum, aka APT-44, these guys are directly associated with the Russian government, and these guys have been very, very busy since about 2014. Starting then, they started attacking Ukraine, using Ukraine as basically a testing ground for all of the attacks they want to use everywhere else. So they started interfering with elections, and then they took away the electricity for a good portion of Ukraine. So when we were talking about Volt Typhoon and the Cyber Avengers, they really are just, either doing the hacktivism shit or positioning themselves to try to disrupt power. Sandworm, on the other hand, has on multiple occasions made blackouts happen in Ukraine. There's a book written by Andy Greenberg called Sandworm, of course. It's honestly so fucking good. If you like to read books, I would highly, highly recommend you go actually read that one. Even if you're not interested in like cyber, it's like a story, it's very fucking cool. So Sandworm likes to develop malware, and one of the first pieces of malware discovered attributed to them is called Crash Override or Indestroyer. Both of these malwares are the same thing, they just go by different names that different researchers gave them. Sandworm no longer exclusively targets Ukraine. They also are exploring different parts of Europe, as well as some critical infrastructure in the United States, so they're a really scary adversary. The steps to protect against them are pretty basic and straightforward. Use good passwords, don't let users just go to random URLs and download random shit from there, have good segmentation between your different networks, all very, very standard stuff. So, of course, this is just a really broad overview of these three threat actors, and each of them have a lot more details and a lot more stuff that they have been doing that could be discussed. So, if I missed something, it's not because I forgot about it, it's just because I chose to give a pretty quick overview of different threat actors across the world that are interested in targeting critical infrastructure. So circling back to, America's attack on the Venezuelan critical infrastructure, it really goes to show that there's a lot of different countries throughout the world and their leadership that's interested in learning how to disrupt the lives of each other in ways to help their, kinetic warfare.